What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles with probably my favourite combination of a Dragon plus double Incinerate users, with CallumO, the newly buffed Thunder Punch Shadow Typhlosion, and Armor Rouge, both in the Ultra Premier Cup as well as the Open Ultra League, as I didn't realise that the leagues were rotating last night, so half these battles were done before the league turnover and the other half afterwards. Now I have to say this team worked pretty well in both leagues. There aren't really too many differences to be completely honest, and I used both Armor Rouge and Shadow Typhlosion interchangeably as the save swaps for this team, but Shadow Typhlosion worked a lot better purely due to the pacing of that Thunder Punch and also the fact that I was often met with a water type on the save swap, so Thunder Punch allowed me to at least fight full switch advantage if I wanted to, or possibly grab a shield advantage. Now I'm going to be showcasing the Open Ultra League battles first since they are more relevant now, and then the Ultra Premier Cup battles will come towards the end of the video. But with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What was your favourite save swap to use in the Open Ultra League? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. So heading into the first battle, CallumO into Cresselia, so obviously not an ideal matchup. I'm going to save swap into my Shadow Typhlosion here, and we're met with Shadow Feraligatr. Now this actually is not a bad matchup whatsoever, especially since the opponent is running a Shadow Feraligatr. They're going to no-shield the Thunder Punch, probably realising that there's no way they can fight for switch advantage, so we're able to get the Incinerate farm down, coming out with another Thunder Punch already loaded. Of course, if the opponent comes back in with Cresselia, I'm going straight for the Blast Burn here. No point in baiting. Blast Burn is going to be grabbing a shield from the opponent. That's absolutely fine. And at this point, we're looking to be in a great position. Armor Rouge can resist everything Cresselia can possibly throw, so I don't mind letting the Future Sight go through. We're going to come in with the Armor Rouge, and the opponent makes a very nice catch there, catching the Flame Charge onto their Ceruledge, which is very cool to see this battle panning out. But we're going to swap, also making a catch onto my CallumO. We don't really need it for anything, so the opponent full sends the Shadow Ball there. We do hang on. We can now go for a Dragon Claw, and things are looking to be in a pretty decent position here. Dragon Claw gets the KO. They come back in with Cresselia and they throw their charge move straight away. So of course, just gonna no shield here, come back in with the Armor Rouge, and we should be able to tank anything they throw, but I'm probably gonna play it safe and just shield the first move anyways. But here we go for the Flame Charge, ramping up the damage. You can see it doesn't do that much damage, but of course now boosted Incinerates are seriously gonna chunk. We shield up, they go for a Moonblast, doesn't really matter, they don't drop our attack there. Psyshock grabs the final shield, and they do make it to one final charge move, but it is just another Moonblast. We can go for a Psyshock. Honestly, could have just committed to a full Incinerate farm down there, but either way, we take out Cresselia, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see CallumO into Clefable. Obviously not a great lead at all, so going to save swap once again into Shadow Typhlosion, and this time baiting out a Poliwrath. Now, I could have thrown a slightly better timing there. Either could have thrown one Incinerate sooner, and that way thrown on perfect timing, or just farmed to 100 energy and then thrown. But then that way I did risk the opponent possibly going for an Icy Wind and dropping my attack first. But maybe it's not going to matter too much here. They're going to go for the Icy Wind anyways, and I'm realizing now, if I don't get the new mechanic, I will not get off another Thunder Punch. So the opponent shields that up, and we don't get the new mechanic or damage registration ever, however you want to call it. Which means, unfortunately, we do lose switch advantage. I'm going to come in with the CallumO, and once again, I don't really need it here. I'm just going to believe that Armor Rouge can somehow sweep in the end game. So we swap into the Armor Rouge here. The opponent is going to go for a Moonblast, and the opponent then comes in with a Greedent. So you can see, if I just flip that matchup up against the Poliwrath, then I would have been in a very comfortable position. So just slightly poor move timing on my Shadow Typhlosion actually is a huge difference here. We go for the Flame Charge. Unfortunately, not doing much damage. We shielded up the Body Slam. The opponent now goes for a Crunch, and I did know that it was a Body Slam the first time around, but honestly, even a Body Slam from that range would have taken us out there, so they're going to go for another Body Slam. My only win condition is somehow farming two back-to-back charge moves, and even then, we're not going to win up against that Clefable. So, Body Slam coming through, takes out the CallumO, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see a Shadow Feraligatr in the lead this time around, so pretty good. This is where we want to see it, or at least if we're seeing it in the back, then it's at least nice to see it up against our Typhlosion, where we have a slight energy advantage. But anyways, the opponent swaps into Annihilate. I'm just going to let this go through. It will be a super effective Night Slash, but we do tank this reasonably comfortably. I'm now going to go for a Psyshock straight away, as I realised they threw after 6 counters, so if I went for 2 Incinerates there, they would actually just barely outpace me to the charge move. I'm now going to shoot up the Night Slash once again, and once again the opponent does not get a boost, but again I have to throw straight away, so going straight for the Psyshock there. We get the KO, so the opponent does not want to use their shield, and they're going to come back in with the Shadow for Alligator. They are 2 away from the next charge move, so I'm going to go for 1 Dragon Tail, go for the Dragon Claw, and Dragon Claw is going to be no shielded by the opponent. At this point, I realize I'm actually just going to save my shields for the Typhlosion. We're going to swap, and the opponent swaps at the exact same time there, which is, it's okay for us, I suppose. I don't think I could have quite got the Incinerate farm down up against the Feraligatr actually, so it's probably better that this did pan out this way. We can go for a Thunder Punch there, and we have now put them into range, hopefully, where after we go for 1 extra Incinerate, a Thunder Punch, even resisted, will definitely KO, and we farm 2 back-to-back charge moves as well. So Thunder Punch takes out the Ampharos. We've got a second Thunder Punch loaded, so we can fire it off straight away into the Feraligatr coming back in, and it looks like the opponent has just rage quit the app there as we take out Feraligatr, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see CallumOnToast into a Shadow Dragonite. So this is where we want to see it once again, so that's fine. We are going to shield this. I'm going to overfarm, and then I will actually try and snipe with one of my 2 Pokemon in the back. We swap into Armarouge, and you can see, because we don't swap into Typhlosion there, we are immediately punished. And because we don't have a 40 energy charge move, they can outpace us to the move there. And they also preserve the health on their Shadow Dragonite. So basically everything that could have gone wrong there ends up going wrong. I don't throw straight away, just hoping the opponent might throw their charge move straight away, and as a result throw on alignment there, but they don't. They are well disciplined, so nice play from the opponent so far. We go for a Thunder Punch. That also doesn't quite get the knockout either, so we are in shambles right now. Thunder Punch, number 2, grabs a shield, but this is going to be game over. Of course, we do still have our CallumOnToast, but we are very low. The opponent's going to swap into Empoleon. I'm just going to fire off the close combat straight away. It doesn't matter, even if the opponent no shields and it somehow took them out there. Dragonite could just farm us down, but we end up getting Steel Wing farmed down by the Empoleon, and we end up losing that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see Annihilate in the lead. So this is a fairly neutral matchup. I'm happy to no shield. They don't farm to a Shadow Ball, but this could be an Ice Punch. It is the Ice Punch. I'm now going to swap into my Shadow Typhlosion, and the opponent is going to bank a ton of energy before swapping into Tapu Fini. Now this is one of the Pokemon that is quite a significant core breaker to the team, and isn't of course available in the Ultra Premier Cup when I was sort of building this team, but it doesn't really matter too much. We've got such a significant energy advantage that the opponent has to throw a charge move here, but even then I can just shield this up and go for a 3rd Thunder Punch up against the Tapu Fini, and Thunder Punch is going to flip this matchup, and let's see what the opponent wants to do. The opponent comes in with their own Typhlosion, but they're running Shadow Claw as the fast move now. We're going straight for a Dragon Claw. Dragon Claw is going to grab a shield from the opponent, and at this point, I'm just going to no shield. The opponent goes for a Thunder Punch. That actually doesn't quite take us out there, and then they swap into Annihilate, and that's a huge mistake from the opponent because Dragon Claw takes out the Annihilate that had so much loaded energy, and now at this point, we should be looking fine. Of course, Shadow Claw is actually very useful for the opponent in this matchup specifically, as we do typically resist the Incinerate damage, but take super effective from the Shadow Claws, but it doesn't really matter. I think Psyshock might KO from this range, and if it doesn't, they're basically going to be at like 1 or 2 HP. They do make it to a charge move. I'm hoping we can live this. The opponent just goes for a Thunder Punch, which we do live comfortably. I think Blast Burn still wouldn't quite take us out anyways, and I'm able to Incinerate, farm them down to take that game. Into next game we see Aurorus in the lead, so going to say swap into Shadow Typhlosion, and we're able to bait out Annihilate. Now they do throw straight away, just going to be a Night Slash. I'm going to no shield, and I'm hoping that we can make it to back-to-back Blast Burns. There's really no point in going for a Thunder Punch here unless I don't think I'm going to make it to a Blast Burn, and we do just barely get there in time, which is very nice. Blast Burn will of course take out the Annihilate, and they come back in with the Aurorus. They get a nice farm down, and as well Aurorus does have the coverage to hit for super effective damage up against both my Pokemon. But of course we do resist the ice damage on our Armarouge, and they're going to have to full send a Meteor Beam to take us out here. So I'm going to shield, they bait with the Weather Ball, not ideal for me, but I'm going to go for 1 Incinerate, go for the Flame Charge, and Flame Charge will of course get a shield from the opponent, but also boost up our attack. So I'm definitely going to shield once again. They go for the Weather Ball. I think from this range with the boost to our attack, Psyshock might get the KO, and it does take them out there. They come in with a Trevenant, and this is certainly game over. I'm not committing to a Flame Charge there, as they would make it to a Shadow Ball first, but Psyshock nearly gets the KO. We swap into CallumOnToast, we get the farm down with the Dragon Tail, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see Zygarde complete form in the lead. So this is a matchup where I'm actually not too worried, because if they do throw kind of early, it's just going to be a crunch, and of course Zygarde is very bulky, it doesn't have that much attack, so I can very comfortably tank a Crunch here, so it means since they don't go and full send an Earthquake, I should win the zero shield scenario, which I'm absolutely fine with. I'm going to go for a second Dragon Claw, grabbing the shield from the opponent. They do win switch advantage, but we can just come in with the Shadow Typhlosion, and I don't think they're making it to an Earthquake, so I'm just going to no shield. This will just be another Crunch here, and Crunch, not going to do too much damage there. They're going to swap into a Shadow Ampharos, so again, just full sending the Blast Burn, and Blast Burn will be coming through. It grabs the final shield from the opponent, and the opponent is going to overfarm here. We are going to shield this up, and this is a huge mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. I swap, I catch the next charge move. I was hoping, first of all, that I get an Incinerate through, but because I don't get the Incinerate through, they're actually going to outpace me to a charge move before I can fully fast move farm them down. So, huge misplay. I need basically something in the back that gets one shot by a Blast Burn. They come back in with the Zygarde. That's fine. I expected that. We're going to go for the Flame Charge, taking them out, and they've got a Tentacle. So you can see Armarouge with a shield advantage, or at least with an energy advantage, would have been fine up against that Tentacle there, but basically wasted the shield, shielding up a brutal swing up against that Ampharos, and we ended up losing that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Massive mistake on my end though. But anyways, into the next battle, we see a Muck, and they go for a Dark Pulse, which is absolutely fine, of course. That is resisted by the fighting typing. We're going to go straight for a close combat, grab a shield from the opponent, and then swap into our Shadow Typhlosion. Now this, I think, is just going to be an Acid Spray, so I do no shield it. They're then going to come in with a Feraligatr. This is just a regular Feraligatr though, so a Thunder Punch wouldn't quite take them out there. Well, it wouldn't actually get that close to taking them out either. I don't think I would be able to Incinerate farm them down, but they do overfarm quite considerably. So at this point, I'm happy to let Typhlosion go down. And as well, we did bait out the Feraligatr so that Armarouge doesn't have to face it in the end game. We're going to come back in with the Kommo-o. I could go for a CMP tie there, although I'm not sure who wins CMP, so I just opted out of that. But unfortunately, we also don't get the Dragon Tail through, and that means I have to throw here, because unfortunately, we can't quite get the farm down. So very frustrating. We're going to come in with the Armarouge, and the opponent will make it to a last second charge move before I can go for a Flame Charge to take them out there. They go for a Dark Pulse. I'm going for the full farm down, and the opponent has an Escavalier in the back, so it didn't really matter. We go straight for a Flame Charge. Flame Charge easily one-shots the Escavalier, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see Charizard in the lead. So I'm going to swap into my Typhlosion, and again baiting out a Shadow Feraligatr. So going straight for a Thunder Punch here. Thunder Punch is going to do some very nice damage, but unfortunately it doesn't quite put them into farm down range before they make it to the next Hydro Cannon. So I'm actually going to go and throw the Thunder Punch straight away, as they were 4 Shadow Claws away from the next charge move. They're going to use their first shield there, and unfortunately I think I'm just going to let Typhlosion go down. I don't know if it is worth it going for that shield there, because I think the Charizard did bank some decent energy before swapping out there. I'm not certain I could have made it to a Thunder Punch before they make it to a Dragon Claw. We're now going to swap into our Armarouge, and they come in with a Trevenant, and this is actually fine with us. We can go straight for a Flame Charge. Flame Charge is going to be no shielded by the opponent. I think that is the correct play. Otherwise, I think I possibly could have just gone for a full Incinerate farm down and come out with a boosted Psyshock loaded. But here, they're going to shield up the Psyshock. I'm hoping this Dragon Claw will take us out here, but it actually doesn't. It puts us into perfect farm down range, where I'm going to go for the extra fast move. I think even resisted close combat is still going to do more damage, but we end up losing CMP up against the Charizard, so they got the perfect farm down up against my Armarouge. Dragon Claw takes out the Kommo-o, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see a Shadow Ampharos in the lead. So this is a very good matchup, assuming they're not running Dragon Pulse, but they do throw after 3 Volt Switches, so it could only be either a Brutal Swing or a Thunder Punch, and either way they are both resisted, so a very comfortable matchup. I'm not certain that a Dragon Claw would KO, so I play it safe. I just go for the close combat, but unfortunately I'm then kind of forced to swap out there, and they come in with a Shadow Feraligatr. Now we've seen several times already, this isn't that bad for Typhlosion when we are up in energy, but unfortunately behind on energy, this is obviously not that good of a matchup. But the opponent's going to swap out of the matchup. They do bank a lot of energy, but it doesn't really matter as we go straight for the Blast Burn, and the opponent no shields, but they also overfarm, and that allows me to make it to a Thunder Punch as well. And Thunder Punch is actually going to grab the final shield from the opponent. So at this point, we are looking to be in a perfect position. I can no shield, they go for Disarming Voice. I'm going to come back in with my Kommo-o and basically just bait them to go for a Disarming Voice, but then swap into my Armarouge. We also get the Incinerate through, which is very nice. Voice, and the opponent falls for the bait as they go for Disarming Voice. They can swap back into Shadow for Alligator. I realise Psyshock's probably going to do more damage than a Dragon Claw, so I'm just going to shield, go for the Psyshock. Worst case scenario, it doesn't quite take them out there, and it doesn't, but it doesn't really matter. The opponent choosing not to bother throwing a charge move. They realise this is game over, so they're just going to let us farm them down there. So GG's to opponent there into the next battle, and possibly the final battle with this team in the Open Ultra League. The opponent's going to say swap into Tentacruel. Obviously a great lead up against that Greninja, but I don't really have the best response to a Tentacruel. It's okay up against my Como-O, and we do have coverage on both the fire types in the back, but behind on energy again, it's not ideal. I was hoping to at least grab a shield advantage in this matchup, but instead the opponent's just going to massively overfarm. So I shield, I respect the damage, it is a Blizzard. We swap into Typhlosion. I was hoping I could snipe there. I'm thinking we should at least live a Scald though, and Scald actually takes us out there. And I've just thrown away this game. We are now down a shield. We've lost switch advantage. We basically just fully sacrificed a Typhlosion there, and they had the perfect answer to our Como-O in the back. So not going to bother throwing, I'm just going to concede the match there. Unfortunately, Armarouge is completely walled by the Greninja, and we do unfortunately lose that game. But GG's to that opponent, very well played. And actually, that was a lie, as this is the final battle in the Open Ultra League. And you will notice that the rest of the battles were done during the daytime, so it should be pretty clear that they're in the Ultra Premier Cup. But anyways, we're going to let the first move go through. The debuff our attack, but it doesn't really matter. Close combat would still one-shot them. We're going to swap. I was trying to catch the next breaking swipe, but the opponent's going to hold on to the energy, come in with a Jellicent. I'm going straight for the Thunder Punch here. Thunder Punch does some decent damage there. You can see a second Thunder Punch won't quite take them out here, but of course, we haven't seen the Incinerate damage register yet, so I'm hoping by the time we make it to the next Thunder Punch, this will be enough damage to get the KO, but the opponent just barely hangs on with 1 HP and a Dream. And at this point, again, I don't really want to double shield my Typhlosion, so we'll let it go down there, but I can get some nice energy on my Armarouge, so we're going to come in with it, and the opponent actually swaps into that Annihilate, which is a strange decision there. We're just going straight for the Psyshock. Psyshock is going to grab the final shield, and at this point we're in a pretty decent position. I'm definitely just going to shield this up here, and the opponent's going to full send a Shadow Ball, and that's fine with me. I'm now going to overfarm here, swapping into my Como-O. I was basically going to sacrifice to either force the opponent to throw their energy, or we can just take them out with a Dragon Claw there, so they don't make it to a charge move. They come back in with Heliolisk, but they don't have back-to-back charge moves loaded. So the first one, Breaking Swipe, will be taking a Sal, but we can now just fire off a Psyshock, and Psyshock will be taking out Heliolisk. And now we can just Incinerate, farm down the Jellicent, so the opponent concedes the match there. So GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see a Como-O up against the Shadow Typhlosion, and the opponent safe swaps into Dragalge. So this is in the Ultra Premier Cup. We're going straight for the Dragon Claw, and because they swapped out there, they're one turn behind. So you always want to throw before the opponent can get off their charge move if the opponent does swap out and you're still in your lead matchup. And as well, we can live the Aquatel there. So I can either grab both shields straight away or win switch advantage and take out the Dragalge with a shield advantage as well. But we're going to swap into our Armarouge, and like I mentioned, Armarouge, just as that safe swap, or at least swapping it in, it just didn't do that well, just because of course we can't quite make it to that first charge move as quickly as the Typhlosion can. And here it doesn't really matter, as the opponent's going to overfarm anyways, but they make a nice catch, catching the Psyshock onto their Ampharos. But that's okay with us. We can unfortunately get fully farmed down there before the next Incinerate registers, but at this point we should be looking fine. And I also am thinking, you know what, I want a 2 shield flex up against this opponent, so I'm going to no shield the first move. It's just a brutal swing, and there we don't quite get the farm down, but we can swap into Como-O. They come back in with Typhlosion, and Typhlosion is able to win CMP up against the opposing Typhlosion. Blast Burn gets the KO, and we do still have both shields intact, as I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Dragalge in the lead this time around, so that's fine. And already we know that we can, of course, resist the Aquatel. I'm going to throw just before they make it to a potential Outrage, and Dragon Claw will be coming through, grabbing a shield from the opponent, and the opponent's going to commit to a full Dragon Tail farm down here. So we fire off Dragon Claw number 2, grabbing both shields from the opponent. We're going to come in with the Armarouge, as it is slightly bulkier than the Shadow Typhlosion. They go for the Aquatel there, as I expected, and this one I'm definitely going to shield the next Aquatel, as I can now go for a full Incinerate farm down, coming out with a Psyshock or a Flame Charge loaded. We're going to go for the extra Incinerate anyways, and the opponent comes in with a Shadow for Alligator. Now, not ideal for me, as of course we don't have the Thunder Punch coverage, and they can actually make it to a charge move just before we make it to Psyshock number 2, but we're going to come in with the Shadow Typhlosion. And here my thinking was, I'm not certain who wins CMP, so instead if we just go for the extra Incinerate, hopefully the edge advantage will help us in the end game. But we've seen already up against a Jellicent, unfortunately, 2 Thunder Punches just barely don't do enough damage to get the knockout. If we were running Shadow Claw, possibly that would have added up over time, but unfortunately they do live both Thunder Punches, and from this range surf, unfortunately, we'll be taking out the Shadow Typhlosion, and we do end up losing that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see a Golisopod in the lead, so this is fine with us. I'm expecting the opponent probably going to run Aerial Ace, but they might not, and if they're not, then of course they can only go for resistant moves with either X-Scissor or Liquidation. They end up going for Liquidation, and that's fine with me. We are going to go for a Dragon Claw. That does not do that much damage, and I know that since they just went for Liquidation, I'm assuming they're probably just running Liquidation and X-Scissor, but I'm actually going to shield this, preserve the health on my Commo since this is an ABB style team, and then go for a full farm down. Now we're going to swap into our Armor Rouge, and again, not ideal for us there as we are slightly slower to make it to the charge moves, but it's actually not that bad for us as we can go for a Side Shock. Side Shock is neutral damage, it does some decent damage there, and Armor Rouge should be tanky enough to live a Surf and make it to the next Side Shock. So Side Shock, again, not going to do that much damage here, but we actually grab a shield from the opponent, and that's fine with me. They do get a very nice farm down, but we've already got a close combat loaded. I don't expect the opponent to shield, so I'm actually just going to throw it straight away. Looks like a CMP tie as well. Close combat will be coming through, and the opponent does no shield. We can now just swap into our Shadow Typhlosion, and assuming we don't get hit with an Earthquake, we should be fine, but the opponent actually does farm up to a potential Earthquake. So a shield, it is the Earthquake, and now we can just farm 2 back-to-back charge moves. I think the opponent has realized it's game over. They stop attacking, they're gonna no shield the Blast Burn, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into this game, another Ampharos in the lead, so this is great to see, and this time the opponent is actually going to overfarm, so I think this could be a potential Dragon Pulse, but it is just a Trailblaze, which, I mean, yeah, it's going to boost up their attack, but it really does not do that much damage. As you can see, Dragon Claw here doesn't do enough to get the KO, so I'm actually going to throw the next one just because they are boosted, and yes, whatever they throw next will still be resisted, but I'm just going to preserve the health. We're going to swap into our Armor Rouge here, and the opponent has a Shadow Swampert, so once again, pacing not ideal, although we're probably not going to grab a shield with our Shadow Typhlosion anyway, so I guess it doesn't really matter that much. But anyway, just going to go for a Side Shock, grab a shield up against the Swampert, forcing the opponent to throw pretty much straight away, and that's fine with me. They go for the Hydro Cannon there, taking out the Armor Rouge. And now we're going to wait out the switch clock, come in with the Commo, and unfortunately, we are completely energy dry, and again, not certain who wins CMP, so instead, just go for the extra Dragon Tail. The opponent full Cincy Earthquake. I was anticipating the opponent would swap there, so do just wait to see what's going to happen. I didn't swap immediately, but I can now swap into my Shadow Typhlosion, avoiding taking any charm damage on my Commo, which is very important, and here, going to go for the Blast Burn. The opponent shields that up, which is perfect for me, because if they didn't shield that, honestly, they could probably just Mudshot farm down my Typhlosion. And now, because they only get 2 Mudshots through, we've still got the Dragon Claw loaded. We're able to outpace them to the move. Dragon Claw gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there. Into the next game, we see Shadow Dragonite, Shiny Shadow Dragonite in the lead as well, which is very nice. We are going to shield this up. I should be able to outpace them in terms of damage output here, but instead I'm going to swap into my Armor Rouge, and again, swapping into the Armor Rouge here does not work out for me as the opponent can swap out and outpace me to the charge move as well, so certainly not ideal. And again, they also preserve the health on their Shadow Dragonite, so going straight for the Side Shock, grabbing a shield from the opponent. We do make it to another Side Shock here, but they get a huge farm down. So Side Shock number 2 grabs that final shield. We got a charge move on our Commo, I do believe, but I think we are going to lose CMP up against the Typhlosion, so we come in with the Typhlosion. We're now going to swap, as I expect this to be a Thunder Punch here, but I kind of still have to throw the charge move straight away, as I didn't really want to risk the opponent swapping back into, say, their Dragonite, for example, and then actually Dragon Breath farming me down there. So we throw it straight away, and the opponent's going to have a Feraligatr in the back, so unfortunately just barely missing out on the charge move there. We are going to shield this up, and I don't want to throw straight away because I'm expecting the opponent to try and make a catch, but because I'm slightly slow to actually tap on the fast move there, they're able to outpace me to a charge move. I think even if I did throw the Incinerate straight away, we still would have been outpaced to a charge move, and unfortunately we do lose that game. But honestly, that was just an unnecessary swap into my Armor Rouge that basically cost me the game. But GG's to the opponent there, and into the next battle. Very spicy team from the opponent so far, running Oranguru in the lead and a Shadow Salamence in the counter swap to our Shadow Typhlosion. At this point, we've have the shield advantage. I'm thinking this is a very glassy Pokemon. 4 Dragon Tails will probably get the KO from this range, and it looks like I'm exactly right in that assumption. Now we're just going to wait for the Oranguru to come back in, go for a close combat, but unfortunately the confusion damage didn't register straight away, so we now take extra damage from that confusion as it registers after we drop our defense. But luckily for me, the opponent has an Annihilate in the back, so we go straight for the Side Shock. They will make it to a Night Slash, which of course is super effective. I'm just going to shield anyways. We should live this, but I'm not certain that I could live all the confusion damage afterwards. We probably would, but I'm just going to play it safe anyways. Foul Play, I think going to do less damage than the Night Slashes just because Oranguru is a bit bulkier there. But we can go straight for a second Side Shock. Side Shock is not going to take them out there. They make it to a charge move, but this is game over anyways, and the opponent actually goes for a Trailblaze since they weren't going to win, so they just go for the BM anyways, which I do find kind of cool. So GG's to that opponent there. Into next game, we see a Charizard in the lead, so we are going to stay in initially and then swap into our Armarouge, and let's see what the opponent wants to do here. They're going to stay in for ages and then eventually swap into Greedent. Now, typically with my Armarouge save swap, it hasn't really worked out, but because the opponent gave me such a huge energy advantage, this might actually be okay for us. They go for a Crunch. Crunch does some decent damage. It is super effective, but we do make it to a Side Shock. We are boosted. Side Shock doesn't quite get the KO there, but I'm actually able to get the Incinerate farm down, so we regain switch advantage, and we also come out with a Side Shock loaded, which is very nice for me. Side Shock is going to do some decent damage up against that Feraligatr, and at this point, the opponent's going to swap back into their Charizard. I'm going to shield the first move here as they go for a Dragon Claw. Now I'm going to swap into my Shadow Typhlosion. They've still got both shields in play, so I'm going to no-shield the first move. The opponent full sends a Blast Burn, but that's fine. We do live that. We can go for the Thunder Punch straight away, and the opponent going to shield up their Charizard. So at this point, I'm thinking, you know what? Just going to let Typhlosion go down. My win condition is my Como-O. I think if the opponent makes it to an Ice Beam on their Feraligatr, that's going to do more damage than a Dragon Claw, so I no-shield here. We get the full Dragon Tail farm down, and now we can just fire off back-to-back Dragon Claws. The first one will be grabbing the final shield from the opponent. The second Dragon Claw will, of course, be enough damage from this range to take out the Feraligatr, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, Como-O into Greninja once again. So last time we did end up losing to Greninja with a very good lead here. So let's see if we can do something differently. This time the opponent's going to swap into their Poliwrath. We're going straight for close combat, and at this point again, because we're just slightly slow to swap out there, and because Armarouge doesn't make it to a charge move until the third Incinerate, we actually have to use a shield there, which isn't ideal because, of course, yeah, we can take out the Poliwrath here, but it doesn't really matter as the opponent will have Greninja, which can completely wall this moveset. So we're going for a Flame Charge once again, and we actually grab a shield from Greninja, which is great because we definitely aren't going to do that much damage there. The opponent goes for the Hydro Cannon, taking us out. Now the switch clocks are slightly misaligned, so we come in with the Como-O, and the opponent has a Golisopod in the back. So again, I'm going to no-shield here, then going to be very slow to swap into my Shadow Typhlosion, and I'm going to be forced to throw a Thunder Punch straight away, because of course, if I overfarm here, they can make it to a Liquidation, and that's going to force my final shield. And again, I'm not certain, but I'm pretty sure Greninja would win CMP in this matchup, so we're just going to no-shield, putting all my faith into my Como-O. We end up losing CMP here, but this should be fine. They go for a Night Slash. They did just throw up against my Typhlosion, so I should be able to outpace them to the charge move. Dragon Claw might get the KO, so I settle for the close combat instead just to guarantee it, but we end up losing CMP as I didn't keep track of their energy. And again, despite Greninja being very good for my Como-O, I lose to the second one in the lead, which is not ideal, but GG's to the opponent. Very well played. Into next battle, we're going to see a Clefable in the lead once again, so say swapping into Shadow Typhlosion, going for that Thunder Punch, and now this is not a Shadow Feraligatr, but they are farming massively, allowing me to make it to a second Thunder Punch. And at this point, I think I can flip this matchup here. I'm just going to shield as the opponent goes for the Hydro Cannon, and 2 more Incinerates are just about enough to get the KO there. Still, again, not really sure why they didn't throw a charge move at all there. Very strange. But either way, we've now got a switch advantage, and they've got a Shadow Typhlosion in the back. So things are looking very comfortable for us as we can just go for a second Thunder Punch. And at this point, we're just going to come in with the Como-O, of course. If they swap back into Clefable, I will be swapping into my Armarouge. I'm not going to use a shield here. Everything is resisted. Blast Burn does a lot of damage there, but that's absolutely fine. We can come in with the Armor Rouge, and they are running the Fairy Wind here. The opponent's going to go for a Swift, which did get a, I'd say a buff, more of just a change. It's not really good either way, but we're going to go for a Flame Charge. We can now just commit to a full Incinerate Farm down, but I think I'm going to play it safe, just fire off the Charge Rouge straight away, and then of course it doesn't really matter what the Typhlosion does. I think we should be able to Incinerate Farm them down anyways, so they come back in with the Typhlosion, we get the farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there into next game, CallumOnToast into Tentacruel. Now we've had a few issues with Tentacruel with this team so far, but let's see what we can do here. The opponent is going to stay in, and they're not going to farm up to a potential Sludge Wave or a Blizzard, so I'm definitely just going to no shield. It is the Acid Spray. We now swap into our Armor Rouge. Again, a bit slow there, and they do actually outpace me to a potential Scald, so I'm going to shield, and they do full send the Scald, and now they come in with Mandibuzz as well, so not ideal, but we've got quite a lot of energy, so I can make it to back-to-back Flame Charges. First one doesn't do that much damage, but the second one is actually going to chunk a fair bit, and the opponent is going to no shield both moves there and throw straight away, so I could have possibly shielded and potentially gone for a full Incinerate Farm down, but I'm going to play it safe. I'm just going to no shield that, come in with my CallumOnToast, and again, I'm not certain that a Dragon Claw would get the KO, so I actually go for the close combat here. This will certainly get the knockout, and the opponent does no shield. So we're going to swap into our Shadow Typhlosion. I should be able to outpace them to a Thunder Punch, so I'm just going to throw it straight away. Thunder Punch will be coming through, grabbing a shield from the opponent, and at this point, I think this is just an Acid Spray, so I let it go through, and it is the Acid Spray. They're going to come in with a Goodra, but that's fine with me. We can go straight for the Blast Burn. Blast Burn is going to do big damage despite being resisted. Now here I've got a few options. I can no shield this and fire off a Charge Rouge straight away, as of course Aqua Tail not going to do much damage, and then I've got enough health to possibly make it to back-to-back Charge Moves. But what I end up doing is going for a full farm down, but because Dragon Breaths obviously chunk a lot more than the Poison Jabs, we've not got enough health here, and we kind of need the Dragon Tail damage on the Tentacruel rather than that Goodra, and unfortunately they do hang on. They can Poison Jab fire me down, and we do end up losing that game. But GG's to the opponent there into next game. We see a Goodra in the lead this time around. They say swap into Galissapod, and we can swap into our Shadow Typhlosion, outpacing them to the first charge move, and at this point they are in range where we can just Incinerate farm them down, so definitely just going to shield up the liquidation. And if they come back in with Goodra, that's fine. Of course, they are going to resist everything, but we've seen already Blast Burn does like 45% of their health, so they're going to come back in with the Goodra. We're going for the Blast Burn just before they make it to an Aqua Tail. Blast Burn does big damage there, and the opponent going for a full farm down, so we make it to a second Blast Burn. And Blast Burn coming through is no shielded, and they've got another Tentacruel in the back. So they are going to outpace me to a Scald here. So I'm actually going to swap into my CallumOnToast, but they now have enough energy to go for a Sludge Wave, and now they've put me into range where they can actually just fast move farm me down. So I think I might have just thrown this game away again up against a Tentacruel, but they are going to shield the first move there. We're going for a second Dragon Claw. Ideally, I need them to shield this, and the opponent for some reason does end up shielding, and now that's perfectly fine here. And even if they go for a Scald and get the debuff there, it doesn't really matter, as a Side Shock is super effective and it is stab, so it will be enough damage to take out the Tentacruel, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to the opponent there into the final battle of this video. We lead into a Skuntank, so I'm assuming that they're not running Sludge Bomb as a charge move, so either Crunch or Trailblaze or Flamethrower, they're all going to be resisted, so I'm just going to no shield here. The opponent is going to go for a Crunch. We're going to go for one Dragon Tail, but the opponent makes a very nice catch there, catching a close combat onto Galissapod, which is resisted, but we can now swap into Shadow Typhlosion, and now we put them into range where a Thunder Punch will KO, so it's not that bad. Thunder Punch is going to grab a shield from the opponent. They're going to overfarm. Very good charge move timing there, but that's fine. I'm going to no shield. Oh, sorry. I'm going to shield as they go for a liquidation and then go for a Thunder Punch straight away, as they would outpace me before we get a full shadow, before we get a full Incinerate farm down. And at this point, I'm actually just going to let Typhlosion go down. Liquidation does get the KO. I should be able to come in with the Armor Rouge and get the full Incinerate farm down. And let's see what the opponent wants to do. They come back in with their Skuntank, so we can just go straight for a Flame Charge, and Flame Charge from this range actually gets the KO, and they've got a Trevenant in the back. They're just going to concede the match, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.